If you've ever played musical chairs, you've experienced levels of anxiety comparable only to those people working in the Apollo 13 control room. And no, I am not exaggerating. You're familiar with the sweaty anticipation as you circle the chairs waiting for the music to stop, followed by the mad scramble to find a spot? Job hunting can be a lot like musical chairs. And while ideally there are pretty close to the same number of chairs as players or jobs as workers, there's always a few folks left standing with nowhere to rest their hiney. It's important to individual people to have the right job, but it's also important to the economy as a whole that a lot of people have the right job. When lots of people are unemployed, not only do they lose out on wages, the whole economy loses out too. And knowing what's going on with unemployment is the first step towards figuring out what can be done to solve the problem. Hi, I'm Matt Sofa, and this is Study Hall, Macroeconomics. Economies rely on people finding the workplace version of their ideal chair as often as possible. Economic growth depends on firms having enough workers to up production, and the money they pay for their labor translates into spending money for workers. So for as much economic growth as possible, we need as many people as possible to find work. Economists measure how many people are working and how many people aren't but wish they were by looking at the unemployment rate. This is an economic indicator that measures the percentage of the labor force who aren't working but really want to be. We can find the unemployment rate by looking at the labor force, which includes all adults who are either working or actively looking for work. It doesn't count retired folks, stay-at-home parents, full-time students, those in prison or the army, or wealthy heiresses who don't need jobs to afford their Louboutin heels. If you're not working or actively looking for work, you're not part of the labor force. Using the labor force as our starting point to measure unemployment helps us get more specific about the population we're actually looking at. So the unemployment rate doesn't seem artificially high just because grandma isn't bringing home the bacon. To actually find the unemployment rate, or the number of people who are part of the labor force but aren't actively working, we divide the number of unemployed people by the total labor force. Then we multiply that number by 100 to be expressed in a percentage, like 5% or 7%. But much like the weather, the fashion trends, and how I style my facial hair, the unemployment rate changes all the time. And there are all sorts of reasons for this because there are all kinds of unemployment. Understanding which kind of unemployment is changing can help us to understand why the rate is going up or down and what to do about it. Now, we've all been the person sitting on the couch in pajamas at noon browsing LinkedIn while eating leftover Chinese food. That is to say, we've all been unemployed. Or, if you haven't yet, fresh-faced, hopeful youths at home, you will be. But the kind of unemployment you are actually really matters when it comes to finally scoring that job. Like, maybe you're facing frictional unemployment, which is when it takes you a bit to find a new job after leaving your old one. It's like when the music turns back on and you have to lift yourself out of your old chair and dance around the circle while eyeing your other chair options until it's time to sit. Frictional unemployment happens when you leave your old job without having a new one lined up. Perhaps you were so fed up with your boss's draconian no personal conversations in the office rule that you quit on the spot. And now you're in the process of applying to a whole laundry list of new jobs in your field. Having access to online job searches can make it easier to reduce this kind of unemployment by giving you access to more job postings. Or to try to avoid frictional unemployment entirely, you could start job hunting before you cuss your boss out and quit on the spot. But if all those job openings you tracked down on LinkedIn have already been filled, you might be facing structural unemployment, where there just aren't as many jobs in a field as there are people looking to fill them, or people are mismatched in terms of skills and qualifications compared to the jobs on the market. In musical chairs, structural unemployment is like the age-old problem of having one fewer chair than there are people playing the game. So there's always going to be one person left standing. In the real world, structural unemployment can happen when a business like a big factory or newspaper office closes and everyone involved gets laid off. There's probably not another factory nearby ready to instantly hire hundreds of workers in the same field. So many of those workers will need time to train in other professions, relocate, or wait until there's a new opening that fits their skills, leaving them unemployed for a time. Structural unemployment can also happen when particular jobs become obsolete thanks to new technologies. In 2023, both the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, and the Writers Guild of America went on strike. in part to demand protections against the advancements of artificial intelligence, or AI. Both unions worried that the new technology could take over their jobs, edging them out of the industry and into structural unemployment. Finally, we have cyclical unemployment as the third major category of unemployment. And it has to do with changes that affect not just you, but the whole economy. Cyclical unemployment happens when the entire system isn't doing so hot. Like, if all other party games suck, so the party guests come flooding into your round of musical chairs and suddenly the entire game breaks down. Economies, like parties, cycle through upturns and downturns. And during downturns, more people will be out of a job until the economy grows again. If you've heard that a rising tide lifts all boats before, you could think of cyclical unemployment as a falling tide, leaving a lot of boats filing for unemployment. Businesses get nervous about making big investments during economic downturns, which means less hiring and even some firing. During periods of recession, which elder millennials like me remember all too well, there are fewer jobs, less income, and lower demand for products, which can then lead to even fewer jobs. Almost like cyclical unemployment is a cycle. While most workers don't consciously categorize their unemployment, their next steps may be different depending on the type of unemployment they're experiencing. Mattsburg is a pretty great place to live, if I do say so myself. We've got everything here: a skate park, a laser tag arena, and 4 different microbreweries. But even the greatest places on earth can contain these 3 types of unemployment. And recently, the local shoe factory closed down, which has made unemployment in Mattsburg even more of a problem. Wes used to work at the shoe factory in town, but it closed down a few months back, and now he's one of the many workers facing structural unemployment. He decided to transition to a different field where he's pretty sure he can find work: microchips. After taking an online course in managing microchips, Wes is ready to apply to some entry-level positions. Harry, Wes's best friend, used to work at Matt's Meatball Bistro. But since the factory closed, fewer people can afford to eat out, and the restaurant cut all of Harry's hours. The town's whole economy has been tightening, meaning that even the surviving restaurants in town aren't hiring new people. To deal with his cyclical unemployment, Harry has to decide between moving to Las Vegas, where there are more restaurants hiring even during a downturn, or biding his time, pinching pennies and hoping that the downturn ends soon. Wes's niece, Betty, on the other hand, has just finished up her degree. Straight out of school, she's facing frictional unemployment as she figures out how to really wow potential employers and land a job to support herself and her cat, Max. But once Betty does land her dream job, maybe she can use her new paycheck to pay Harry to stay at home and cat sit. On top of those folks like Wes, Harry, and Betty, who are all counted in the unemployment rate, there are some other situations that this measure can overlook, known as hidden unemployment. Wes, for instance, might get frustrated if he's passed over for job after job, even after he completed his course in microchips. And after the 10th rejection, he might just stop trying. In that case, Wes would be considered a discouraged worker because he's, well, discouraged by rejection after rejection. And since he's technically left the labor force, he's now invisible when it comes to calculating the unemployment rate. This lowers the unemployment rate as a whole and can make it look like the economy is doing better when in reality it's just the opposite. And if Harry really does end up being Betty's daily cat sitter, he would be classified as underemployed, or someone who isn't quite as employed as they'd like to be. Harry is technically working and pulling in some income, but Max only needs part-time care. Plus, cat sitting doesn't exactly use all Harry's skills as a top-notch restaurant manager, even though Harry has picked up some high-quality belly rub skills since Betty hired him. Now, even if business in Mattsburg was booming, there would still be some unemployment. Economies can't ever actually get to 0% unemployment. It's another unattainable goal, like running a marathon in under 2 hours or keeping your apartment clean for longer than an afternoon. A game of musical chairs is always going to have some people standing around, either waiting for the music to end to grab a seat or as the unlucky chairless player at the end of this particular round. Similarly, there's always going to be some structural unemployment, thanks to shifts in what's being produced and what skill sets are needed. And it's always going to take some folks time to find the right job, so there will always be a little frictional unemployment too. When an economy only has these 2 types of unemployment, it's called the natural rate of unemployment. And while it sucks if you're one of the people left without a job, by macroeconomic standards, this means things are running just how they're supposed to. The natural rate of unemployment is what economists see as being just right. So when an economy is sitting at this level, it's seen as being at full employment. And with as many people working as possible, the most possible goods and services are being created too. This means the GDP is at its full potential, known aptly as potential GDP. When the unemployment rate is different from this natural rate, we blame it on cyclical unemployment. And because we know cyclical unemployment comes directly from other economic woes, higher unemployment is a pretty good indicator that something isn't going quite right. And because we know cyclical unemployment is, well, cyclical, we can guess that this kind of unemployment might actually make the downturn worse. And that's one of the most important reasons economists and the government have to pay attention to unemployment levels. When cyclical unemployment is high, the labor market is all out of whack and the economy is spiraling downwards, it's probably going to take some government intervention to get things back on track. When you personally are unemployed, it can feel pretty bad. Almost as bad as when your elementary school best friend elbowed you out of the way of that last chair at James Camden's 9th birthday party. Nobody wants to be the last kid left standing up. Just like nobody wants to be the schlub putzing around the house all day while the rest of your friends at work. Not to mention those bills that are starting to pile up. And when tons of people are unemployed, it can make the whole economy feel pretty bad too. Actually, in many cases, being out of a job actually says more about the economy than it does about you in particular. Understanding the nuances of unemployment and the job market can help people make smart choices, like when it might be best to stick with the job you've got, or when to make a leap to something new, or even launch your own business. We're all a lot more interconnected than we might seem, and it is in everyone's best interest to get workers off their couches and into their dream chairs. If you're enjoying this series and are interested in taking the full study hall macroeconomics course and earning college credit from ASU, check out gostudyhall.com or click on the button to learn more. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like. Tell us how competitive you get when playing musical chairs, and smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time.